For victims of domestic abuse, fleeing may mean leaving everything behind. There is hope. SaskTel provides brand new cell phones so that starting over is possible. Learn more at sasktel.com/fresh start.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to playoff day here from the curling stadium, Martensville International. My name is Sean Joyce. My frequent broadcast partner this week has been Matthew Hall. He's with me again this morning. Matthew, hi.
Hey, Sean. How's it going?
Not bad. Got a question for you before we get started, because I've done a lot of games this week. We've done a lot together. This is my first time looking at these two teams. Have you had a chance to see either of the Jones or Grandy team play so far this week?
Absolutely. In fact, I was just on their game last night in the final round robin game when they played against each other. So just had a quick little nap over the night, and now I'm right back to watching them again.
And that's pretty much the same thing it's been for these curlers. You mentioned they had to play each other last night. Kind of a quirk in the draw, and it can happen anytime you've got a setup like this. We've got a team, two teams here, and the Jones and Grandy foursome that played each other in their last preliminary round game last night. Same thing on the men's quarterfinal. Steve Laycock and Yanagasawa played in their final preliminary round last night, and they're back on the ice facing each other again this morning as well.
Absolutely. And you know, that game last night did not go Clancy Grandy's way. It just seemed like they struggled with their draw weight a little bit, and everything that could go against them did. So I'm sure it was one that didn't take long for them to just push behind them and shake off. But I think we're in for a much better matchup this week.
Well, it was a must-win last night for Jennifer Jones just to make the playoffs. Clancy Grandy could have avoided this situation this morning altogether. She had the chance to get one of the byes directly through to the semifinal. Wasn't able to do that. As you said, she'll be looking to flip that script this morning if she can.
You know, two teams that are already very familiar with each other. This is already the fourth time this season that they've come up against each other. Played each other twice last weekend in the Summer Series event in Quebec. Clancy came away with wins in both of those matchups, and Jennifer finally getting the revenge game last night, looking to even up the season series here this morning.
Just the one stone in the rings here as we play the first end. Shot stone belonging to it's the Jones Horseman. Now I'm looking. I don't see Jones out there.
Oh, actually, that's a bit surprising. Of course, Jennifer is playing as a five-person team this year. Now, this is the first time I haven't seen her playing. It's possible that it's already happened and we've just missed it, but they are playing as a five-person rotation this year for the time being. So this appears to be just the Mackenzie Zacharias team of last year. Of course, Jennifer coming on to head the team in the off season, and they've been rotating around, but it looks like they're going with this matchup today. Hopefully it's just a team decision and Jennifer's not feeling a little bit under the weather. So it should be Mackenzie Zacharias at skip, lead Lauren Lenentine, second Emily Zacharias, and the vice throwing now is Carly Burgess.
I had to pull that roster up myself. Was expecting to see Jennifer, and then noticed, well, that's not Jennifer holding the broom.
And I'm not too worried about them. I think they should still be in very good hands with Mackenzie, of course. World Junior Champion in 2020 and defending Manitoba Scotties champion. This team represented Manitoba at the National Scotties Tournament of Hearts last year. So I'm sure they'd like to have their skipper out there, but I'm sure these girls will be able to handle themselves just as well.
making the guard there. Now Grandy team looking for the short angle run back. Clancy Grandy backed by, this is her third, Kayla McMillan. Keep this just off the nose to make contact with the red stone. Will do that. Loses the run back stone as well. So now nothing in the rings. 3 guards to work with.
And I don't think this is much of a surprise. I believe, if I remember correctly, last night Clancy started with the hammer then as well. And they elected to play a pretty wide open end, not really put too much in the rings, always kept the blank alive. It actually came down to, I believe it was just a flash by Clancy Grandy on her first one that led to them giving up a steal eventually, but definitely probably the same as last night, just looking to ease themselves into this game, not take on too much risk. But there are a couple of guards there, so the opportunity for Team Jones to make a nice draw here and put one in a tough spot.
Nice come around there. Leaves maybe a quarter of that stone available. It is behind a red guard, so a little bit risky if you're trying to play a delicate tap around that. It wouldn't be impossible to put that guard into the rings if you clipped it on the way by, so she's going to opt to run it back.
Is definitely the safer call. Definitely, we've seen a lot of curl here this week. I think you could make a play on the one in the rings, but especially this early in the game when you're maybe not 100% sure what the path is doing, this is probably the safer call to make sure you don't end up pushing them in the rings or going right by. Excellent shot there by Kayla McMillan, removing the one in the rings. Even I was a little bit worried that they might roll to stagger those guards on the center, but looks like there is enough space that they have some options to run back if Mackenzie makes a very good draw here.
Yeah, I think it touched it, but not overlapped. They're just side by side, so she's got run backs available on both of those blue guards. Now a little bit better situation for the Grandy team. Mackenzie Zacharias is going to look to come around, but the run back this time will be a bluestone coming back, and that could still set up a deuce. Rushers picked this one up early. Backing away now. She's got a lot of room yet by the guards. Coming to rest just the back corner of the button. Still only about half under cover as well. Deep enough that Clancy feels she can come right down, sit on top of it, sit one, and I don't know, from that indication, couldn't tell whether she was looking to bump this or not. She might want to keep in mind she needs room for the second point.
Absolutely. I think probably can get away with the tap. One of the things with the tap is you want to make sure you get to the inside, and you're probably still going to be on the tee line, but on the back side of it, and Mackenzie would be able to come down and freeze regardless. So I think it's probably, you'd like to just make a perfect freeze here and force Mackenzie to follow you down and freeze and stay in a good spot, because if she ever bumped and rolled off or didn't quite make it there, then you might be able to figure out how to get your two from that. You have a couple guards, a rock over on the side you might be able to slash in or roll off of. So a couple options here if you just make the freeze first here and almost guarantee your single point, and you figure out how to get two later.
This is looking like a lot of weight though. With that little bit extra weight, maybe had a little bit more room as well. It slides by the red stone to the back 8-foot. Chance now for Mackenzie Zacharias to simply duplicate her first. If she can freeze on her own, it'll be difficult to even score a single for Clancy Grandy. Might have to play some kind of run in, hope for a double.
And this was sort of the issue that we saw last night. Clancy not very confident with her draw weight. She made a couple decisions on her rocks to play some hits instead of the draws. But when it came to it, and she was forced to make a couple draws, they just weren't quite ending up where she wanted them to be. And that's what ultimately led to it being a fairly quick game last night. So hopefully she can figure out what the ice is doing this morning and get the opportunity to make some nice draws, although this one also may be looking like it's a little bit heavy and floating out a bit wide.
Well, she only got her first one about half under cover. This one, again, lots of room by the guard. Pretty close to the same weight as the first one. Just rubs off that stone and leaves Clancy room to get in with the draw.
Almost a bit lucky that they did bump it as much as they did. If she sort of just came down and froze to the corner of that stone, you'd likely see Clancy with the opportunity to try and make a double to score her two. But as she rolls off, it's enough. There isn't really a double there that doesn't remove the other blue stone. So you're just going to see Clancy try to follow her down once again and score her 1 point. And I think this is a great way for her to now have a second chance to throw the same draw again and get a really good feel for what the draw weight is today.
Final stone of the first end here in this women's quarterfinal. Clancy Grandy with last rock. Facing two Team Jones stones at the back of the forefoot. And once again, this stone has got a lot of curling to do. She's going to get to the inside of that red and get shot rock. Comes down to it. She'll nudge it. I think it's still the red at the back of the forefoot that sits shot rock, so it'll be a steal of one for Team Jones. They jump out to the early 1-0 lead. Clancy Grandy will have last rock again in the second.
Imagine being able to stream every curling game from every sheet from any event, be it your Wednesday league game, bonspiel, or corporate event. Curling Stadium offers an all-inclusive streaming solution featuring high-quality cameras, ease of use, great reliability, and minimal installation. Offering your sponsors customizable ad space on your streamed curling games and being able to sell video packages to your corporate events for increased revenue. With Curling Stadium, you can stream to any device, be it your mobile phone, tablet, or computer. Push the feed to your desired platform, be it Facebook, YouTube, or any other social media. Curling Stadium is simply the way forward. Where it's commonplace in other sports to televise every game, we want to do the same. Curling is a global sport, and it's time it gets the coverage it needs. Make your curling club the next Curling Stadium.
Imagine a place with endless possibilities. Imagine a place where people come together to build families, businesses, and communities. Imagine a place where small-town values and progressive qualities are in perfect harmony. Imagine a place rich with so much vitality. Imagine your future in Martensville.
Second end just underway. That is the lead's first stone you see coming to rest, just biting the 12-foot. Now Clancy Grandy asking lead Sarah Loken to throw the corner guard.
Based on what we saw last night from the Clancy Grandy squad, we'll likely see them just go around the corner immediately, especially with that first Jones stone maybe not ending up in the best spot, although they will have the opportunity to, they can make a good tap on it, sit as a very tight guard with a rock top four, it would be a great position.
Tap maybe feeling like it's a little tough for them in the second end. She had the choice to come around it, which would allow the double, or she's going to throw the center guard, protect it, and that stone that's just biting the 12-foot on this ice all week long. Still just a guard, really.
Absolutely. We've been seeing plenty of curl, usually around 4 or 5 feet total, but a lot of the curl is very late. So you'll see this kind of rock looks like it's floating out there for a long time, and generally hogline in on a draw to the forefoot, we're seeing about 2 or 3 feet of curl by the end. So this one just a little bit lighter, doesn't quite get there, but certainly plenty of room to get around later if they need to. But it does leave that red rock exposed at the top of the 12 foot. So you're going to see Clancy try and hit and roll into the rings over on the other side and keep some play away from those guards, at least for the time being, until she can make a play and go around them.
Might even be possible she could hit that and get a little bit of a roll and keep her shooter out of the rings and still be in the free guards on top. I think rolling to the corner, she's 9 times out of 10, if you make the roll, you're going to bite the rings.
I think so. And either way, if you roll in over on the side, you're still going to be up near the top of the house, that if they hit, unfortunately, they're just chipping the guard over and doesn't even remove the stone in the ring. So an opportunity now for Team Jones to either make another guard, or possibly they talked briefly about the tap, but looks like they've gone back to just making the straight guard and playing around it later.
The other issue that the Granby team created for themselves with that little rub is they've really cut off access to their own corner guard. There is a tight port there, but I don't think you'd want to be drawing through that.
With how much curl we've been seeing, if you're playing it that close to the guard, you may end up just over curling out the other side anyways.
Just a few options. I think they did go back to the tap. You'd like to get close to the nose here, but you can put it on a bit of an angle and still keep it in behind your own stone. Kind of got caught in between though. It tapped on a bit of an angle, so the shooter's not protecting it. There's a port to get at that stone directly.
And I thought you might see them play that. You definitely could get to the inside of that red and flop him behind the red guard. But I'm not sure. It's possible this red might have just spilled in enough to also be sitting in the ring. So might take the opportunity just to make the double here and possibly stay as a corner guard.
Stone, whether it's in or not, is a problem rock for you. Curls just past the nose, misses the double. Leaves her own stone in an okay spot for now, but Mackenzie Zacharias looking at throwing a guard on top of that so you can't use it for a run back.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of less experienced teams might be a little bit impatient here and try and sink one around this 2-color combination in a tight guard and top of the rings. But I think especially with the hitting ability of these teams now at the top level, if you do that, it's very likely Clancy's going to take a run at that run back, and very likely that she'll be able to remove both stones. So I think some excellent patience here by this younger team, and just tossing up the guard and forcing Clancy into the tougher decision of whether or not she wants to go around or try and field the guards. But this is going to slip a little bit deep, but I still think ends up in a good spot.
Little choice here for Grandy, but to attempt the double peel.
And they are frozen, but I don't think, if you hit this red rock on the center line side, the blue will drag back towards the red stone. I think the angle is probably too extreme that it probably won't make contact, but this needs to curl up regardless.
Well, a bit of a fortunate break there, actually, in catching the red so thin. They actually promote their own rings and rock into the 12-foot, and that shot stone is open. That's one, if you knew you could make it like that, you might have called it.
Absolutely. And now, yes, Mackenzie will have the opportunity to hit this blue stone, but with no center guards up, still the possibility is there to set up a multiple score if you're able to hit off one of these stones and roll in behind a corner guard. If you ever get a little bit of a miss out of Mackenzie, then that's your opportunity to score too.
Oh, nice hit and roll there. Gets in behind cover.
Absolutely beats Clancy there. So now you can't really hit and roll under if you're the Grandie team. And it doesn't really make much sense to play a freeze either, because likely Team Jones would just throw up a guard and you wouldn't have a chance to get rid of these red stones. So going to take the opportunity now to at least get rid of the one closer to the center line. You're probably going to roll out into the open. But then once Team Jones hit it, you'll likely either have a double or the opportunity to just sink a draw around that corner guard situation.
Makes the hit, sits right there. Appears to be the Grandie stone right now. Blue stone was just delivered. Sits shot rock, fully exposed. Carly Burgess being asked to make the hit on this one. Important to stay right there though. You get any kind of a roll and it starts to leave angle for Clancy Grandie to perhaps roll underneath everything. Or I guess, you know, at this point in the end, if she knows she's going to have to score anyway, she could decide to just loop one around.
And that's what I was saying. If you roll too far, she might just play the straight draw, but she is able to sit right there in a pretty good spot. If you roll another half rock, you probably leave a double, but for the moment, that's not really an option. So Clancy will likely just roll out into the open, and I think her whole goal at this moment is just to make sure she has a clear path to score her one. If she has the ability to draw somewhere with her first stone to maybe set up a second point, that's great, but get this rock off the center line so you have that open draw to the forefoot to score your single point at the end of the day.
Sweeping for a little extra curl here. Makes the hit. Shooter is going to roll all the way across the house. Does hang on, full 12 foot, but is still Team Jones sitting one behind that corner guard. Mackenzie Zacharias now surveying the situation. Actually, if you're the Grandie team, you might have, just by virtue of getting that long roll, you might have helped yourself, because you've got Mackenzie Zacharias now playing a draw around the corner guard. This can only, it's the only shot that could really help you if you're Grandie. If she comes a little bit deep, suddenly it opens up your chance for two.
Absolutely, and Mackenzie knows that, and she has decided that she's willing to take on that risk. Of course, if you make this shot really good, you put it top four, mostly buried, it's just cuts down the rings a lot for the Clancy Grandie team. But of course, there is always the risk. If anything, if you're a little light, you could leave a double on the red rocks. If you're a little heavy, it leaves her something to freeze to. So willing to take on that risk and feeling confident that she can put this rock in a good spot.
Wants to get at least, I would think, edge to edge with that stone that's already biting the top of the 8 foot, just so there's no room to get a roll underneath. Rushers picked this one up early. Haven't had a chance to get off of it to let it curl yet, so now you see swing around trying for the extra curl.
At the very least, they were able to get it past the other red stone, so there is no double, although, like you said, had to go for so long right out of her hand that just kept the curl out of the equation. And now this rock looks like it's at least edge on edge with the guard. You might be able to see a little bit extra space between the guard and the rock. So the opportunity here maybe for a lightweight hit with hack or board weight and just try and flop in underneath.
Yeah, ideally on a rock like that, you would love to be able to get off it, let it have a chance to start curling and then finish it. But if they didn't go end to end on that one, they might have left it in the 12-foot. And I think if that rock had stopped in the 12-foot, you would have seen Clancy Grandy just go right around it.
Look back at how Clancy got here. Started off the event 4-0, beating Ashley Howard, Daniela Jench, Silvana Tiranzoni, who she lost to in the final of the Summer Series last weekend, and Lorraine Schneider before slipping up just a little bit, not having their best game in that game last night against Jones. Ended up with a 4-1 record here in the quarterfinal. Back on against Jones again.
They gave up the single steal in the first and just rubs the stone at the top of the 8-foot on the way by. I thought she had a beauty, but that little rub straightens out her shooter and not able to get the roll behind.
Absolutely, and I was a little bit surprised there. They went a bit early out of her hand, but from about halfway down the sheet to the hog line, it really didn't seem like they were necessarily panicking about the line, and right at the hog line, it seemed to just make that last bit of turn that they weren't expecting. So something to remember moving forward of how that spot is breaking, and hopefully they can make that shot if it comes up again.
They weren't dealing with a lot of air to try to make the roll, but they had room, and boy, as it was coming into the house, I thought she had it. That last little bit of movement, just a slight rub. Barely moved that stone at all. The only reason we know for sure it rubbed, you could see it change direction as it went by and couldn't get the roll.
They're going to take a second look at this. You do have to be careful with this shot. I think if you end up nosing, it's not, there likely isn't a double, but I think what Lauren Lenentine, who's in the rings for Mackenzie, is saying is that if you ever just roll like a half rock or a rock just to the center line, then you might be high enough to leave a double back for Clancy. So I think either you want to get right up to the nose of this blue stone or roll all the way to the other side of the rings. Likely even if you roll out, Clancy probably isn't playing the long angle run back on the guard for 2. So you're probably good to error that way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The long roll here doesn't hurt you, but if you ever leave a double, that's the one that could hurt you. And the other side, you're trying to hit that on the nose. We just saw Clancy Grandy's stone move a little bit more on her than she expected it to, and there's a long guard plus the one in the 12-foot, but you wouldn't want to rub either one of those.
Absolutely. So it seems like she's throwing maybe a little bit of extra weight to take the line out of the equation and make sure you have that big roll. Looks like she was probably just going to hit it and roll out to the side, but as we said, only real shot I see for 2. I don't think the port is there between the 2 guards, so only real shot for 2 would be the long angle run back on the blue guard, and that's not really a shot you want to be playing unless you absolutely have to. So I'm just going to elect to play the straight draw to the 8-foot for a single point.
You're not playing that shot in the second end.
No.
Now you might play it in the 8th end.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If you absolutely had to, you needed your 2 to tie the game or maybe to win the game or something like that, I think you'd take a look at it. But still plenty of game to play after this, 6 more ends to go. So just going to elect to tie this game up and move forward to the 3rd end, tied 1-1.
So Clancy Grandy with her final stone here in the second end, trailing by 1. She had a draw in the first. Her weight was nice, but didn't get quite to the inside of the stone. Needs full 8-foot on this one. Brushes are down, but not a panicked sweep, just a firm clean. I'll bring this stone right into the button area for the skipper. Make sure she knows she's got that weight in her back pocket. They will take their 1 point. We're all tied up after 2 ends of play. It'll be Team Jones with last rock in the 3rd.
For victims of domestic abuse, fleeing may mean leaving everything behind. There is hope. SaskTel provides brand new cell phones so that starting over is possible. Learn more at sastel.com/fresh start.
Imagine being able to stream every curling game from every sheet from any event, be it your Wednesday league game, bonspiel, or corporate event. Curling Stadium offers an all-inclusive streaming solution featuring high-quality cameras, ease of use, great reliability, and minimal installation. Offering your sponsors customizable ad space on your streamed curling games and being able to sell video packages to your corporate events for increased revenue. With Curling Stadium, you can stream to any device, be it your mobile phone, tablet, or computer. Push the feed to your desired platform, be it Facebook, YouTube, or any other social media. Curling Stadium is simply the way forward. Where it's commonplace in other sports to televise every game, we want to do the same. Curling is a global sport, and it's time it gets the coverage it needs. Make your curling club the next Curling Stadium.
Sean Joyce, Matthew Hall here with you live from Curling Stadium, Martensville International. Third end action just underway. Nancy Grandy with the draw to the button in the second end, tying things up, and now looking for the tight center guard. She got the guard part, maybe not as tight as they would have liked, and that is another thing that we've seen this week. If you put the broom down looking for a tight guard and you come up a little bit short of that, didn't have enough time to curl, and that rock ends up a foot off the center line still.
Absolutely. It's very difficult to put those guards in the correct spots, and it'll be interesting to see how they end up playing this end. Last night when these two teams met, it was not Clancy Grandy's game. There weren't a whole lot of ends where she didn't have the hammer. They gave up a number of steals. So it'll be interesting to see how they decide to go about this. And with that first rock ending up off the center line, I think we're probably in for some interesting decisions this end, I think.
Well, it essentially acts as a corner guard. Mackenzie Zacharias asking lead Lauren Lenentine to come around. Gets a piece in behind it, but that one didn't curl quite as much as they would have liked either. And this might be something that we're seeing. The game that I had last night, we had just a little bit less curl as well. And it's not that they're not curling. They're still taking 4 feet of ice plus, but whereas we saw big finish earlier in the week, this is the 15th draw. These rocks were sanded before the competition started, and they start out really aggressively. And the one thing you will see as they start to wear down is that the finish won't be quite as pronounced as it might have been earlier in the week. Still plenty of curl, but probably a little bit more gradual.
Absolutely, and likely not something, you could probably tighten up the ice a little bit, but it just becomes more imperative for the sweepers to know that if you end up having to jump a rock too early, you're not going to be able to be saved by that late finish. I'm sure at the beginning of the week they could sweep a rock early and still not be worried that it's going to come over at the end, but that's just not the case of what we're necessarily seeing here today. So you need to be that little bit extra aware. You might see the ice or the broom just get tightened up that little bit to make the adjustment. Likely going to see an exchange of hits here. Probably, I think both teams at this point would be pretty happy to make a roll under that guard. It is close enough to center that I'm sure Clancy would like to get a rock back there, and it's far enough off that Mackenzie Zacharias would be happy if that was the only guard in play. You have one side of the sheet completely open for your final stone.
It is protecting a bit of the forefoot, but you'd still look at that as a corner guard likely if you're Zacharias. Second for the Grandy team is Lindsay Debut. Apologize to Lindsay's grandparents if I got that name pronounced wrong. Makes the hit again, stays on that side of the sheet, so both teams looking for the roll. Interesting here that Mackenzie Zacharias opting to play the other turn to try to get it. Get a little bit more kick off the contact when you're playing into it like this.
think if you're Mackenzie, you're totally fine if you end up over-rolling this out into the open on the other side. It would keep all the play towards the sides of the sheet and away from where you want to make that last draw. Eventually, if they keep not making this roll and playing the nose hit, it looks like this rock would still be in the rings, but when Mackenzie makes another hit, she would be out of the rings if she didn't make the roll herself, and then you might see Clancy with the opportunity to sink a draw right around everything.
It's kind of a sneaky way to get yourself a center guard, though.
Absolutely,
Just
although this one looks
hit
like
this until it's out of the
rings.
rings. She's getting a roll here. She's probably going to roll too far. Does hang on for a bite to the edge of the 12. Spins back even a little bit. Important to stay there, though, because if that rolls out, Zacharias would have another chance to come around that corner guard and perhaps set up her deuce here.
For sure, and I don't think you'd expect to see them miss it again the second time. They just didn't get enough curl the first time, but they'd be able to make the adjustment. Now they're sort of forced to hit this. It looks like they really want to keep the blank alive.
Yeah, you see a lot of these teams at this level will be very conscious of trying to manage last rock into the even ends. If this was the fourth end instead of the third, you might see them come around the guard, but in the third end, you'll hit that biter.
That's exactly what I was going to say. They could make the decision to go around the corner, but one, because it's an odd end, I think you'd likely be around the fourth for sure. The other thing is that guard is that just a little bit high. Now we said everything's running a little bit straighter today, but throughout the week it would be very difficult to put a rock in a spot where Clancy wouldn't be able to access it around that corner guard. So electing to play the hit, does it very well, sticks around, and now it's up to Grandy's squad to match it.
On the third stones now, this is Kayla McMillan. Waiting for some curl here. She's got contact. She's going to roll a little bit towards the middle. Grabs a piece of the 8-foot.
Taking a look back at how this Team Jones got themselves to this situation. Started off the event very good with wins against Lorraine Schneider and Ashley Howard, outscoring them 19-2, but then seemed to falter a little bit. They went up against Daniela Jensch, and if you were watching that game, as you know, they stole, I believe it was 5 in the first end against Daniela Jensch, ended up losing that game 8-9, and then came up against a very strong Silvana Tiranzoni squad. Went into the 8th end, they're up a point as well, but gave up a 2 to lose that game to Silvana. So ended up in a must-win situation last night. Were able to come away with a very good game beating Clancy Grandy, and they find themselves once again up against Clancy right away again here in the quarterfinals.
Well, makes the hit there. I think they had indicated they might have liked to roll a little bit farther away from that guard, and actually rolls a rock's width towards it. And now, if you can make the hit and roll behind cover, you're probably just at the tee line, probably not behind it.
Right. Would still leave the opportunity for Mackenzie to come down and make a little freeze. If she had to tap it an inch, I'm sure that would be fine. She'd still be able to set up a rock in there for a second point.
Well, this is going to have to curl to get even contact. She's by it right now, doing everything they can to get that last little bit of curl, but it will slide by. Here's an opportunity for the Jones team that they probably didn't see coming.
You know, I think that's maybe not the first time. I feel like we saw Kayla miss a little bit wide in the first end as well in a similar spot. So I think just maybe need to make the adjustment to how little bit straighter the ice seems to be this morning.
So opting to come around the corner guard, you could just draw open side here. My concern coming around the guard would be, you come around, she's going to play that hit on the back one again and roll in behind, and the stone you're about to throw is going to take away your access to her shot.
Absolutely. I think you'd love the perfect spot for this would be to go top 4. If you could ever over curl just a little bit and show a piece on the outside and take away a little bit of that hit and roll opportunity, although this one doesn't look like it's quite gonna get there. Pretty close though.
She made it a lot tougher.
I think if that rock curls another inch, it's perfect, but as where it is, she did choke off a lot of that space for Clancy. I think if she wants to get to the inside of that red, she really needs to bring the weight down almost maybe to a point that she won't be removing it from play, and you probably don't want to risk that too much. So this ice looks tight enough that she's probably just going to throw her regular hit, maybe make sure she gets rid of this stone, and maybe you can make the hit and roll on your last one.
Clancy Grandy has been chasing a little bit throughout this game so far. Needs a nice hit and roll here with her first in this third end, just to get out of a little bit of trouble here. Nothing out of the brushers yet. Now the offside sweeper looking for a little bit extra curl. Not quite going to get up to the nose. Shooter will stay right there. That has probably left just a little bit more room if Mackenzie's Zacharias can make that roll. All of a sudden, 3 is in the equation.
Absolutely, and one of the good things that you have if you're Mackenzie is you have a couple options here. Yes, I think the best make is it to roll right in behind, sit the 2 dead buried, and 3 is definitely a possibility. But you also have stuff to work with. You can still roll to the outside, make it a long hit and roll for Clancy. She will likely play the hit rather than trying to sink one around, and it's a very difficult hit and roll, so you could get your 2 that way. What you probably don't want to do is just nose it and leave a nice short little hit and flop for Clancy. So either way, I think if you're rolling in either direction, you're pretty happy if you're Mackenzie, as long as you don't roll out.
Mackenzie Zacharias looking for the hit and roll. They had the brush on early, now backed away. And now looking for that last little bit of curl. She as well will get the nose hit, maybe an inch roll towards the inside. The port between the 2 reds, I don't know if there's room to roll under now. You almost
one of the issues is if you think once you're hitting that first red stone, you're also a rock higher. So I don't know. I think you might be able to see enough to make the roll, but whether your blue stone is going to get caught on that rock. And
that's what I'm saying. I don't know if you can get underneath it. You might touch it, and you're thinking maybe touch the back end of it and get in behind cover that way?
Yeah, that's what I was saying, which I think is probably why you're seeing her tighten up the broom a little bit. She's going to throw a little bit of extra weight, so that if she does touch off the back of that red stone, she can still maybe wiggle her way in behind.
The problem with having to throw the extra weight and tighten up the broom is that, and you can see her looking at it from the hacks.
Yeah, brings that guard into play.
It brings the guard into play, and it's in her eye for certain.
Well, I think if you're Clancy, the smart way to throw this is to make sure that you don't hit that guard, that you at least remove the rock from the rings. If you give up a 2, you're still in this game only down 2 in the 4th end, but giving up a 3 to such a strong team as the one they're playing you'd still be able to come back, but would put you in a much more dire situation.
Sweeping for that last bit of curl. Gets the hit, does touch the back end of that red stone, and ends up shot rock mostly behind cover. Now did she move that red stone out enough? And that's what Zacharias is looking at. Does she have enough of it She can play the angle tap on her red, remove the blue, and get her 2 that way.
Yeah, I think you have both options to go after this blue. You could play the same side Clancy just did with some lighter weight and come around, although we have seen already a bunch of rocks run very straight there. So probably this is the easier option. They would know this spot very well, close to the center line, and you can see about half of that red stone. You make any sort of contact, it's going to remove that blue. So you just have to make sure you get enough that you don't roll out.
Still a delicate shot, and really Clancy Grandy has been chasing for the first 3 ends. This is the first chance that she's had to put a little pressure on Mackenzie Zacharias. See how the young skip can respond. Needs a tap on her own stone. Doesn't actually have to get the blue one out of the ring, but she needs to move it back a couple of feet at least to get 2. She's thrown enough weight to make sure she kills it. On the brush right away is by the front one. Catches her own, catches the blue now. Will the shooter hang around with that extra weight? It does. Full 12 foot. That's 2 points. Put them on the board for Team Jones. They take a 3-1 lead over Clancy Grandy after 3 ends of play. Grandy will have last rock in the 4th.
Imagine a place with endless possibilities. Imagine a place where people come together to build families, businesses, and communities. Imagine a place where small-town values and progressive qualities are in perfect harmony. Imagine a place rich with so much vitality. Imagine your future in Martensville.
Imagine being able to stream every curling game from every sheet from any event, be it your Wednesday league game, bonspiel, or corporate event. Curling Stadium offers an all-inclusive streaming solution featuring high-quality cameras, ease of use, great reliability, and minimal installation. Offering your sponsors customizable ad space on your streamed curling games and being able to sell video packages to your corporate events for increased revenue. With Curling Stadium, you can stream to any device, be it your mobile phone, tablet, or computer. Push the feed to your desired platform, be it Facebook, YouTube, or any other social media. Curling Stadium is simply the way forward. Where it's commonplace in other sports to televise every game, we want to do the same. Curling is a global sport, and it's time it gets the coverage it needs. Make your curling club the next Curling Stadium.
4th end just about to get underway. We've got our first deuce in this game, and Clancy Grandy, having made a nice hit and roll with her final stone, thinking she probably had put some pressure on this Jones team. Mackenzie Zacharias made a shot that really wasn't as simple as she made it look. Very delicate shot, nice shot to make the angle slash and hold her shooter, picks up the deuce. Then asking for the center guard. That's how we've started this 4th end, and here comes the corner. So we're going to see some rocks in play again here in the 4th. Kind of dictated for the Grandy team. Down 2, they're going to try to score that 2 right back here in the even end.
Absolutely, and I think from what we saw from the Grandy team last night, they took a very conservative approach to scoring there too. They usually just threw up the one corner and tried to sink around it immediately on their second rock. So it'll be interesting to see if this stone remains as a corner guard first. Unfortunately, it will just slip into the rings, but it'll be interesting to see when they do get the opportunity to maybe play a bit more aggressive, if they're going to take it or decide just to try and keep an easy 2 going.
With that stone sliding into the 12 foot, the opportunity for Lauren Lenentine to make the hit. Would have liked to have rolled maybe perhaps behind that center guard. She's going to roll just a little bit to the outside, and she's still got a piece of the 12 foot, but another opportunity put up the corner guard while it's still in the free guard zone.
One of the great things about the 5-rock rule is you still get that opportunity, even with a miss on your first one, to put this second guard up.
And that was always perhaps maybe the one complaint about the 4-rock, and I don't know if complaint's the right word, that's maybe a little too strong, but it was always a little tilted towards the team without last rock. You got 2 free guards, whereas the team with last rock only got 1. So that's been evened up here in the 5-rock, and everybody seems to like it. Certainly has been good for the offense.
Absolutely, and we especially saw, now I think teams have really learned how to defend against the 5-rock rule much better than when it was first implemented. We saw the year it was first came in, we saw a lot of threes late in games and in the last end a win, which was a lot of fun, but I think teams have made the adjustment, but it certainly results in more rocks in play, some more aggressive play, which I think is better for the fan experience overall.
Well, even those adjustments have been pretty good for the fan experience, because in a lot of cases what we're seeing is some precise runbacks that 20 years ago that just wasn't part of the repertoire. You just didn't play those. If we played a runback in my day, we were happy to make contact with the stone. If it rolled out, that was fine. Now you take a look at a stone like this, if you were playing that runback on the guard, they'd be unhappy if they didn't stick it behind the cover. It's just they've gotten so good at those shots.
Absolutely. I think that rock may be slipping a little bit too deep. You are still above the tee line, but I'm sure they would have liked to keep that more in the top of the 4th. Now the opportunity to fall them down and probably just make the straight freeze for the time being. You could tap it to the back of the button, and that would still cause an issue for the Team Jones.
I think they're trying to get right to the face here, or even a little bit on the broom side angle, just have it queued up to roll towards the corner guard. Wouldn't be bad either. It's got a lot of curling to do, but they want to get to the face as well. They got to drag this a bit. Line's coming nicely. And actually over curls the face just a little bit. She is dead buried.
Yeah, and I think you're happy with that. Probably would have liked it to curl a little bit less so you have the ability to access it later more easily, but it's still a pretty good spot for them. Definitely something that they can set up with. Now, if that guard is ever removed, it'll be pretty difficult for Team Jones to remove that blue stone.
Coming around from the other side now to try to sit on top of that blue. Nudges it just a little bit. The shooter pops out. Still a piece behind cover. Red stone at the back of the button continues to be shot rock.
It's like they're deciding to play the straight tap on this blue. One thing you have to be careful with this is make sure you keep the angle with that red at the back of the button, so that if Mackenzie ever decided to run that red stone in at the top of the 4, that blue wouldn't be going anywhere, that would still jam. So at most you want to push this maybe half a rock, just enough to be shot, but stay frozen on that back red.
Rusher's staying close to this one, but it's got a curl yet. You see them switch, trying to get a little bit of curling. Oh, they need to bring it for weight. Come down, sit right on top of the blue, taps it just a little bit. A little bit of a tap, actually. Puts it in a spot where the red-blue-red combination might be available now. Mackenzie Zacharias sees that as well. Wants to do something about it.
Looking at this, you could play the red run back on the guard. Those blues are now angled in such a way that blue in the middle should go out through the hole and the other one should go out the side of the sheet if you hit it perfectly. You do have to be careful though if you're playing that. If you miss a little bit on the one side, could get the reds moving too.
Now they're going to call the whole gang down and talk about this. You can see from the overhead, if you hit that red right now, red onto blue, it's coming onto that shot stone at the back. Mackenzie Zacharias is conscious of that, wants to do something about changing that angle somehow or another. Her first indication, I think, was to come down, maybe tap the red a little bit, push the red up beside the blue, leave a pocket. They are looking now at the run back. This is probably the only way to remove both blue stones, but as you said, it comes with a little bit of risk.
Absolutely, and I think you just have to keep in mind while you're throwing this, what way is the better way to miss this? You want to make sure that if anything, you're pushing this rock back towards the blue side of the sheet, I should say. That left side as we're looking at the overhead. Anything to the right side, if you make contact with that red, only bad things can happen. So even if you ran it straight by and missed everything and moved the guard out of the way, there's still always the opportunity for the double later, and Clancy has to be very careful. So I'm sure she'll be very close though.
Big weight on the run back attempt. Swooping to hold the line. She actually does overcurl just a little bit at the end. Gets perhaps a bit fortunate, just loses the one stone of her own and moves the other blue out. Moves the shooter in behind cover.
If that curls another inch, it's disaster, I think, for Team Jones. You'd likely see at least two reds going, and the only red that would be left would probably be open, but gets a little fortunate there.
Perhaps the most fortunate part of that entire setup for Mackenzie Zacharias, the three red stones end up dead in line. They're all in behind each other. As a Grandi can only see about half of the one blue. She could play the slash on that, but she probably loses her shooter, and it's a delicate slash, which you can't see very much of it.
It's difficult to tell as I'm looking at the overhead. I think red is still third shot.
That's what I'm
very
trying
close
to look at too, and just occurred to them that perhaps we should check as well. I would tend to concur. I think it's the blue, and that does matter, because now if she opted to play that slash, loses her shooter, she'd still be sitting two. You can play that. You don't have to play big weight. You certainly don't need to kill the red. Just need to move it back into the 8-foot to be sitting two or perhaps three if you could hold your shooter.
I was just thinking, I'm not sure, maybe you can see enough of that blue to hold the shooter with like you said, a light weight.
Yeah, you don't
around to sit three would be very difficult, but you can certainly keep your shooter over on the side of the wings, I think. Either way, I think you have to deal with that red on the button at some point. Obviously, with them being shot, and this might be the time to do it, although
you could do it with just a draw. She might be looking at draw tap, just tap to a freeze and leave a blue-blue-red angle, because your shooter will be just about fully exposed after you make that, and a problem for Mackenzie Zacharias. With that ice, I gotta think that's what they're playing, just the draw tap.
So I think I saw them indicate, I think you do want to move it, yes, to be shot, but I think even if you're frozen and you keep the angle, that's probably okay, something you can access later.
I think you have to move it here, because if you don't, I think you're going to see Mackenzie Zacharias throw a guard. So looking for the draw down to her own stone, try to move it up a couple of inches, just enough to be shot rock. Rangers are on this as much of a line as anything else to blanket by that red stone at the top of the 8-foot. Just that little bit light as well, and not able to get by the red stone, will end up cornered on the red. Continues to be Team Jones sitting shot at the back of the button.
And really wanting to get that blue rock another 2 feet or so. It's a great angle that they have on the red. The only problem is there's that other blue on the side of the 8-foot that's blocking you from removing that red at the top of the 8. And now you've choked off your own way to promote your own in for shot. So Clancy's going to have to maybe get a bit creative here in figuring out how she's going to score. Is there the possibility she could eventually angle run in that corner guard, although that doesn't come with no risk either.
First thing I saw Mackenzie indicate was to run the red guard straight back. I'm not sure you want to be playing that here.
I'm really not sure what that would do for you. If you run that red guard straight back on the one Clancy just threw, you'd probably lose the blue at the top of the 8-foot. That red probably redirects back into the other blue on the side of the 8-foot. So you could likely get rid of 2 blues, but the only thing you're really doing there is opening up access to that set in the button, which is probably what Clancy wants you to do anyways.
Exactly, that's the problem right there. And I think what they're doing, and again, we don't have player mics, and in the broadcast booth we can't hear the on ice level, so I'm not sure if the viewers at home were able to hear any of that conversation, but I think what they've decided is to play a guard to take away that angle run-in.
Yeah, I think that's the only shot that Clancy has to score a multiple at the moment, so take that away for the time being and sort of push the envelope onto Clancy and make her decide what she wants to do here, and you wait and see.
She's got access to that she can get at shot rock on the next stone. Anything in the middle, she still needs 2 shots to get there. This is going to have to curl to take it away. Well, if they were worried about them playing it, it's still there. She didn't get far enough over.
Initially, I was a bit surprised that they play it this early. I thought this was a shot you might end up playing with your last, but as I took longer and longer looking at it, I don't really see what other option there is.
No, she doesn't have much else. Like, she needs 2 shots anywhere else just to get at shot rock. Even with this one, as long as she makes contact with something in the middle, one of the 2 reds, she may open up something in the middle for her next one. If she can ever make it perfect, she's sitting free right now. Boy, that's not the way you wanted to miss it. You had to run it onto something in the middle and change those angles. Still there, I guess, if she wants to play it again, but having lost her own stone off the side of the 8-foot, it's now a shot that would be for 2 at the most, and there is the risk you could pick your own stone off the top of the button, and there's nothing to catch the raised stone on anymore. Could set up a steal of 2.
Yeah, even if you ran that guard sideways more into that combination at the top of the 8-foot, at least you'd be opening up your scoring area a little bit, but you need to make something move in the center there. Maybe just got a little bit tight. We've seen Kayla miss last end flashing on the wide side with her out turn, so maybe just a bit of overcompensation.
Mackenzie doesn't want to leave it for her again, so they're going to play that wide corner guard again, and you can see they've tightened up the ice quite a bit for this attempt. The last one didn't curl up enough for them. And tightens it up a little bit more when she gets to the half. really you almost don't even have to cover that blue stone. What you have to do is, you see that red stone in behind it. If you cover that red stone in behind it, that takes away what Clancy Grandy would need. She needs to be able to hit the outside of that stone.
Absolutely. I was just about to say, a lot of times these shots, people try and play it too cute and just think about trying to guard the stone. But even if you're sort of a foot wider than guarding that blue stone, you get in the way of what you need. She needs to hit like a third of the blue stone regardless. So still don't quite get there. Clancy, maybe a bit surprising, not going to take another run at this. She sees
Well,
something else now.
I think the fact that she lost her catcher over on the side now, this shot, that angle becomes a little bit riskier, because it's, in the last attempt, had you run that in, caught your own stone at the top of the button, that catcher at the edge of the 8-foot would still have been sitting second shot. If you do it now, you could leave the Jones team sitting 2. So what she wants to do here, looks like, play the tap, angle tap on the blue-red at the top, break that angle, and if she can get something to spill out, either the raised stone or her shooter to spill out just a little bit, she might have 2 ways at shot rock. She's got that angle raise is still going to be there, and hoping to have something on the left side of the sheet as she looks at it from the hacks. If you've got 2 ways in there, Mackenzie Zacharias is not going to be able to take both of them away. A nice looking shot here. Makes the hit, does roll over. And you can see where that first raised stone stayed. She's got access to just about all of that stone to play the blue-blue-red.
I think the really great thing about that shot is she kept her shooter high enough that if you ever had to, you could also come in off of that and probably raise the blue onto the red that way as well. So a couple options here for Clancy, and looks like Mackenzie is going to hit that stone that just rolled off and try to roll into a spot behind where Clancy can't remove it.
Boy, tough shot here. Not just the hit and roll. It's does she get underneath that stone at the top of the 8-foot? Because if she rubs that stone, touches it at all, and her shooter stays fully out in the open, it's just about a nose hit on this one. Would kill both reds and could be for 3. Needs to try to get underneath it. Needs to make contact with this one first. She's got a piece. Come across and make the double. Now pushes it onto her own stone. Clancy Grandy now appears to be sitting 1, but that might not be the worst thing for Mackenzie Zacharias. I'm not sure how you get the second point right now. She changed all the angles in the house.
Oh, I was just thinking it didn't look pretty, but I think it ended up okay. Only thing I see might be to run that corner guard in that they were trying before. Of course, with some risk, you end up picking out your own skill too, but angle might be there if you can run it onto the top of the blue to get both reds moving for 3. Other than that, I maybe could just play the straight in-turn draw and try and grab a piece of the side of the button for your 2.
Even that's not without risk, because you got to flirt with that red stone at the top of the 4-foot. You wouldn't have to move it very far before it's shot rock. I'm going to take a long look at all the options. If you're playing anything on the angle run, you're going to, you're going to have to move the red stone at the top of the 4-foot. You can't just play a draw tap, because tapping it onto your own stone, it's still not going to be second shot. I'm wondering if they can get by the guard tight enough to play the blue stone she just delivered, tap it onto second shot. I don't know if there's room for that.
I'm not sure if tapping it into the red does anything. You could tap it on a slight angle and try and sort of raise it into your own. If you just get it past the red stone in the top of the 4-foot, there might be enough room to score your 2, but that's very close. Looks like Clancy's taking a really long look at this angle run back.
if you're going to play this one, really your best case scenario, you probably try to run it right into the pocket between the blue and the red. The blue will come back onto the stone at the back of the forefoot, and the other red at the top four should go out the side. You can score 3 here.
Absolutely. If we could rotate the overhead and imagine that red and blue stone in the top of the forefoot making a little bit of a catcher, that's exactly where you want to run it to. That blue stone would go directly back onto that red back four, but as I said earlier, plenty of risk here. If you're ever just a little bit off, you could pick out your blue stone and give up a steal or 2. Probably not much that can really go wrong if you hit this too thin, though, I would imagine. I guess there is
Catches the blue and then comes back. It's hard to say. She's decided it's worth the risk, though. Certainly an opportunity here for 3 points. Clancy Grandy trailing by 2 with her final stone. And number 4 looking for the angle run in. This is overthrowing on them a little bit. They got to be careful not to kill their own. Might be wise to just get off the sweep on that. Drives it harmlessly by everything. She will pick up a single point. Team Jones continues to lead 3-2, and they will have last rock when we come back for the 5th.
SaskTel Be Kind Online wants to stop cyberbullying. Want in on the action? You can get a grant to help. We award up to $1,000 for youth initiatives that help spread kindness and prevent bullying. It's easy. SaskTel has already given away tens of thousands of dollars. There have been lots of great ideas, including kids giving cookies to others, a group set up to welcome newcomers to their school, random acts of kindness, and so much more. The ideas and opportunities are endless. What great idea do you have to help stop bullying? SaskTel can help. Go to BeKindOnline.com and apply for a grant today. Together, we can make a difference.
Partnership with curling in general is phenomenal, and being able to partner with a team like Team Flash has been fantastic over the last couple of years. And for us to be able to extend that to a 4-year commitment, we're really proud to be a part of your team and to work with you guys, and we wish you nothing but the best as you work towards that Olympic dream. And we're glad to be part of it and be a part of the ride.
And calling for the center guard.
Yeah, we were just talking shortly in the break there, a bit surprised at the weight choice there. We were thinking to play that with a bit more weight and enough to get both Red Rocks moving and give yourself a chance for 3, but it looked like she was maybe just deciding on a hack waiter, maybe just a straight sort of bump up to try and get 2 that way, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's what she had to be looking at with that weight, is just try to put it straight into the side of that red stone and move it just enough to get her 2 points, but perhaps thinking she didn't run the risk of giving up 2 that way as well. If you put that onto your own stone, maybe thinking that her shooter hangs around for a second shot at least.
Sure, but either way, it's a 1-point lead with the hammer now. Jones in a very good position of control in this game.
Attempted to come around, but ends up with essentially a tick shot. So another another center guard now being asked for. Can't get much more center than that. She's pretty much split that line. Mackenzie looking for some input. Okay, what do you guys want to do? Do we go around the corner? Or do we loop around the center? And they opt for the corner.
I think this is probably the best way to go. Once again, Clancy just not being able to get those center guards in exactly the way, or in a great position down the center of the sheet, and one of them ending so far off that you can sort of just play this corner guard pretty safely. If Clancy ever decides to ignore you and go around the center, then you have the opportunity to hit and roll to a good spot or try to play the run back. That'll give you the opportunity to score too. So get one set up now while Clancy's team is still scrambling a little bit.
Brings that draw into the 8-foot, but still leaves it almost fully exposed. One thing that I find interesting about that one, that is that same side of the sheet that they tried to play the corner guard twice last end to take away that run back, and they didn't curl enough on either one of them. So maybe a little bit straighter going to that wing this morning than it has been.
Yeah, and I think it might be a little bit straighter that way in that direction in general. Of course, thinking back to the third end, it was a little bit of a different spot on the other side of the sheet, but still the same turn. They had a number of hits that didn't quite get enough curl. We saw a flash by Kayla that end on the wide side every time they kept trying to hit and roll behind that one guard. So maybe just a bit straighter in that direction across the whole sheet. So it's going to come down to who can adjust to that first, I think. We'll be able to get some control over this game.
Well, we saw that them get caught on the hit attempt too. They were sweeping for extra curl the whole way down. She makes contact, but you see the shooter roll out the back of the house. So another attempt to come around that corner guard.
Sweeper's not in love with this one. Looks like a little bit heavy. Is it going to stick around?
Nancy Grandy meeting it at the tee line, trying to guide it through the back. And who says Gibbs can't sweep? She has enough on that one to bring it through the back of the house. And now asking for the come around in the middle.
Hey, I was a skip for a long time. We're great sweepers for about 6 feet.
Best 6 feet sweepers on the team.
Yeah, anything more than that, we'll leave it to you guys. But
I'm still a skip, so.
Well, then you know what I'm talking about.
That sweeping stuff's for the birds, but every once in a while. You flex your muscles at the tee line and then turn around and tell the front end, see, that sweeping stuff's not hard.
So leaves the opportunity here for Clancy's team to draw around the center guard. Get one in a good spot here, and Mackenzie could be in a little bit of trouble.
That's a great draw. Catches a piece of the button, and I think you're right, Matthew. Look at the curl on that one. Going the other direction, still has that big curl and some late finish, so that's even over buried on the center guard.
And I think that's important. I think if they drew that and it was just dead buried, it's probably a little bit further than they would have liked. Mackenzie would have the option to follow them down and tap it. Not that, I'm not sure if she would, but the option would be there. But with it over curling a little bit, really no option here other than just to play this peel. Preferably, you'd love to get both blues moving if you can, although this is a little tight. Maybe a plan B run back.
Moves the center guard. The shooter will roll across in an action. Catches that stone that was just out the back of the rings as well. So Nancy Grand now look to replace the center guard. These are the little things that always interest me. They threw the two guards to start the end with the out turn, but they made the come around with the in, and she's going to call to replace the guard with the in turn as well. And this is the turn that seems to be curling a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe just that speaks to a little bit of confidence. They haven't quite figured out exactly where the broom needs to come down for that out turn. So maybe, yes, this does curl a bit more, and you would think that makes it a bit tougher to place this guard, but it could just be a spot that they have figured out that they are a bit more confident with. Need to make sure the weight's okay, though. Needs to sit. Just slips fully into the rings. I think if you were sort of biting the 12-foot, you'd be okay with that, but since it slips fully in, gives Mackenzie the opportunity to make the double. You could probably make the double and roll behind the corner guard, too.
Playing it from the side she is. I think the corner she's probably trying to roll behind is the blue. On the brush early. Gonna hit this pretty close to right on the nose and dead stuffs it. A little unfortunate there. Hard to, with that amount of weight, to stuff it in such a way that you leave it dead buried behind your shooter. She throws the guard here, and that red stone in the 12-foot essentially acts as a second guard now. Little deep on her first draw guard attempt. Going to try to put this one a little bit higher. Protect that red-blue situation in the center of the house.
Absolutely. One of the good things, or at least the better outcomes with that shot by Mackenzie, is you always still have that corner guard looming on the other side. So with that red being in the rings and Clancy deciding to guard it, that might be something that she has in the back of her mind as something she could play with her last stone maybe.
Nice guard thrown there.
Taking a quick look around at some of the other quarterfinal action going on this morning. Chelsea Carey and Nancy Martin are currently tied 3-3 in the fifth end. Chelsea Carey with the hammer and looking to possibly play a nice freeze to set up a deuce over there. And on the men's quarterfinal game, we have team Yanagisawa coming up against Steve Laycock. They're in a 1-1 tie in the fifth end as well. So you can tune into all three games on Curling Zone coverage on YouTube. So like the opportunity here for Curly to run this back?
Or just they were opting for the double peel. They discussed all the options. Actually gets over the top of the second one. But by being that thin on it, doesn't kill it. And really unfortunate for the Jones team at the end. That rock spins and actually gets about half under cover.
Yeah, she pushed it so far over the top. I had so much rotation on that. At the end, I thought it was going to be okay. Looked like it was just going to float out and stay in the open. But the end just took that last little turn and wrapped itself around the guard. So great opportunity for Clancy now just to throw up a guard. And what do you do if you're Mackenzie? You could probably just pick one of those out if you had to. But it won't be an easy double run back if this guard is made properly.
I think the double run back is probably what you're playing though on your first stone.
Absolutely.
Just a horrible bad break there. She caught the second stone, and that red blue by the center line, they were lined up before, so it, coming into the house actually rubbed that red stone, was coming away from the blue, and just right at the end with that extra spin takes a little hook, and boy, it's corner frozen on the back end of that rock and half underneath it. That was quite the spin.
Looks like this guard is going to be made pretty well, so we'll see likely the double run back attempt by Mackenzie. Should pretty much be right on the nose if you want to make sure that red makes contact with one of the blues. At this point, I'm not sure. I don't think you're too worried about trying to dead stick something. If you could at least get those blues moving on the forefoot, get them out of the way, you probably have an opportunity to score with your lats.
if you don't get something moving out of that button area right now, you might have a decision to make on your last one. Do you just play to pick one of them out and give up a steal of 1 rather than risk a steal of 2?
That's what I'm thinking. As is, if you don't make this run back, you just peel it off. You do have an in-turn draw to the button, and I think it would be difficult for Clancy to block both that and the short run back, so depends how well you're feeling about your draw weight.
On the front one, catches the red, but is going to drive it by the 2 blues in the rings, and her shooter stays for a guard. This actually gives Clancy Grandy a chance to loop a 3rd one into the top of the 4-foot. Sit right on top of her own, and boy,
so close to making that. Unfortunately, just that's probably worse than just running it straight by. If you run it by, as I said, you'd have the in-turn draw to the button, and you'd have that short red run back double if you ever had to. But by just missing it and leaving that guard there, the opportunity for Clancy now to sink another one, and then you're drawn side of the button against 3, and no real way to pick out any of those stones or make any sort of play on them.
She can pick out the 1, the back stone. She can see a little piece of it. She could pick it out. But if Clancy Grandy drops this freeze right on top of her own stone, picking that out now would be a steal of 2. Well, you're not gonna. If you had to play that to cut her to a steal of 1 and a tie game, that's one thing. But if you're playing it to give up the lead, I don't know if you play it.
If Clancy makes this perfect freeze, she's still basically just biting the 4-foot. So I'd put faith in Mackenzie's abilities to at least outdraw that. If you get a piece of the button to score is tough, but this has some curling to do. You definitely don't want to roll off. Big missed opportunity there, I think, if you're Clancy. Definitely
well, I think it's a guaranteed steal.
Absolutely, but you really had the chance there to put the hammer down. The way where it ended up, yeah, I think Mackenzie can blast it, and I don't think that middle rock will squirt far enough to give you a score of 1 or anything, but could have had a good opportunity to put a multiple point on the board for Clancy there. Just that little bit heavy. If that's a foot lighter and it doesn't quite roll off enough, I think it's still okay.
So facing 3 in the 4-foot, a chance to make 2 of them go away. It's going to be a steal of 1, but she'll take that right now. Has to hit this just a little bit on the broom side to make sure she gets the 3rd one. Makes the hit, does kill the 2 blue stones. So it will be a steal of 1 for Clancy Grandy. We're all tied up after 5 ends of play. It'll be Team Jones with last rock when we come back for the 6th.
Imagine a place with endless possibilities. Imagine a place where people come together to build families, businesses, and communities. Imagine a place where small-town values and progressive qualities are in perfect harmony. Imagine a place rich with so much vitality. Imagine your future in Martensville.
Imagine being able to stream every curling game from every sheet from any event, be it your Wednesday league game, bonspiel, or corporate event. Curling Stadium offers an all-inclusive streaming solution featuring high-quality cameras, ease of use, great reliability, and minimal installation. Offering your sponsors customizable ad space on your streamed curling games and being able to sell video packages to your corporate events for increased revenue. With Curling Stadium, you can stream to any device, be it your mobile phone, tablet, or computer. Push the feed to your desired platform, be it Facebook, YouTube, or any other social media. Curling Stadium is simply the way forward. Where it's commonplace in other sports to televise every game, we want to do the same. Curling is a global sport, and it's time it gets the coverage it needs. Make your curling club the next Curling Stadium.
First stone of the sixth end is that center guard just coming to rest. Kenzie Zacharias looking to come around it. I think she's getting some questions from the other end. This is one where in the even end you would really expect them to throw the corner guard. I think that's what they've settled on.
Absolutely. You'd think there's only 3 ends of play remaining, so you would imagine, as long as there's no blanks, which we haven't seen one yet, you'd imagine that Jennifer Jones's team would have 2 hammers to 1 in 6 and 8. So with a bit of an advantage, you definitely are free to sort of push a little bit to try and get your 2. Even if you score, then it's 1 hammer to 1 for each of the teams. But you have the 1 point advantage in that case. In the other women's game, it was a steal of 1 for Nancy Martin in the 5th end, so she leads 4-3 in the 6th end of play, and the men's quarterfinal still in the 5th end. Kind of a big mess in the rings, but it looks like Yanagisawa is sitting shot stone, so looking to steal that end.
I had the opportunity to call that final preliminary round game between those 2 teams last night, and a big mess in the house was kind of the story of that game. Both teams played a lot of rocks in play the entire game. I'm surprised to see it only such a low scoring game so far this morning. Clancy Grandy looking for the second center guard now. And did that stop in time? Might be in the rings. Now she can't see very much of it.
I think it is in, just based on the fact that she's asking how much they can see of it, but probably not something that you necessarily need to deal with immediately. Even if it is, you could go around the corner and pretty much, as long as you're in the paint somewhere, you'll be out counting that blue stone. But looks like they've instead decided to go around the center. Maybe a little bit surprising to me. I thought you threw that corner for a reason. You might as well utilize it while you have the free chance right now. Although you would risk the opportunity. Clancy could go around the center herself first and put it in a good spot.
So looking to come around the 2 center guards. Important to keep this rock a little bit higher in the rings. Just maybe bite the top of the forefoot. See it dead buried. Clancy Grandy going to ask to come down, sit right on top of it.
And this is what I was thinking about, playing around that center. Yes, you put it in a very good spot, but if Clancy can freeze one down onto it, you're sort of now stuck in this loop where you have to kind of consider or continue playing around the center and moving stones around. Now, you may just see Mackenzie walk up and peel the centers. I think that would be nothing wrong with that call either, for sure. Looks like they will put this in a really good spot.
Yeah, stays the view with a nice freeze tap, leaves herself on a bit of an angle. So Mackenzie now asking Emily to come down, sit on top of it again. Do see a lot of that in today's game. These two teams jockeying for position in the house until you've got a chance to run something back on a favorable angle. get to the inside of this. Blue doesn't want to leave a red-blue-red combination.
I think she did.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying Clancy has to hit it yet. The angles are in her favor right now.
Yeah, I think you don't want to, you have to be a little bit careful about trying to roll behind the blue guards, because you don't want to leave it in a situation where you're actually choking off your own access to that blue-red frozen combination. I think if there is some way that you can just push this red just by the blue stone, but still stay mostly open, it's something that you'll be able to have access to later, and it would definitely put Mackenzie in a very uncomfortable situation. Now it looks like they are looking at making a move on it right now, rolling to the outside, which would make contact with the blue rock and remove both reds.
Well, they're going to have a talk about it. That blue-red at the top of the forfeit, that's a good combination for Clancy Grandy. And really, you don't have to play this right away. You've got all kinds of time. That angle is always going to be in your favor. There's nothing on the other side of the sheet that Mackenzie Zacharias could really use to break that angle, so she needs a couple of shots really to break it up right now.
That's what I was thinking. Try not to move them at all. Just hit somewhere close to nose. Maybe you can hit slightly on the center line side, but keep it in a position where you can still access it later. If you try too hard to roll behind, you don't want to choke off the ability to make a play on that later. Now, you'll likely see Mackenzie probably just walk up and start peeling some guards anyways, so she'll likely open it up for that chance.
Well, they've had their discussion, decided how they want to play this. The only thing is, when they have a discussion, they don't usually signal, so we don't know now for sure if they're playing for the hit and roll behind or the double. That's tight ice, though. I gotta think she's throwing a little bit of weight here, and if you're throwing weight, you might be trying to get the double and roll away. Nothing wrong with the double. Just whether or not you need to play it this early.
Yeah, this is the spot on the sheet too that we've seen rocks tend to run a little bit straighter, so could just be tightening up the ice to try and ensure that they're not hitting this too far on the high side. So this is out there.
Definitely wanted to hit that a little closer to the nose, probably keep the shooter, and wouldn't have spilled her own out to the open like that. And we think that stone at the top of the house is biting, so it's Clancy Grandy, that's the case, sitting 2 right now.
I will say one of the nice things that did happen there for Clancy is, yes, he pushed that blue stone into the open, but it's not wide open. It's only about 2/3 accessible. That's a stone that you almost like to have there if you're the Grandy team. It's something that you can always slash into the button if Mackenzie ends up getting a rock into a good spot that you can't access.
I think that's part of the discussion here for the Zacharias team. She did indicate we could just loop one around here, but they have to be conscious if they come to the tee line, that probably leaves the slash on that blue.
I think with most of the shots I'm thinking of, the biggest problem with them is that center guard is really a pain for you. So I think it would be a smart call to walk up and just at least get rid of that blue rock on the center. If you get rid of that, you have a lot more options, a lot more flexibility in what you want to do later.
Well, and this could be just a case of also making sure you're going to have a shot to score. You start to get everything plugged up in the middle. You draw, you know they're going to follow you. They love the play in the middle right now. If it is Grandy sitting 2, it's not looking like there's going to be a blank here. You want to make sure you have a chance to score, and plugging up the middle works against you. So playing the peel on the center guard, I think they talked about, can they bring the shooter across and maybe come off the back end of that corner or punch it up? I don't think that's what they had in mind. They clear off the corner altogether.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate. It's going to be tough now to generate multiple score with the hammer here, but one of the nice things is it did get that corner out of the way, so now this entire right side of the sheet is wide open.
certainly simplifies the calls for the next little bit for both teams, really. Clancy Grandy going to protect the 2 stones she's got. Kayla McMillan being asked to throw the guard here. They want to get enough curl on this to cover that stone, just nibbling the top of the 12 foot. Going to cover a piece of it, enough that there's no double available on the 2 stones in the rings. So looking to run this back, try to get a couple of blues moving, but she's going to pass it by everything in the house. See, Grandy now will look for another guard, maybe a little bit further over. She'd like to get better cover on that stone on the 12 foot. She ends up in the same line, that's okay. She just has to make sure she doesn't leave a double on the 2 rocks in the rings. Kayla had great weight on her first one, and they just had to wait for it to curl a little bit.
Definitely would expect her to be a little bit closer here after making the adjustment.
Pressure's picking this one up a little earlier. Sit in a similar position, maybe just a little bit higher. Still protecting half of that blue stone that we think is nibbling the 12 foot.
Still enough separation though. This rock ended up quite high. Mackenzie's looking at making a play on that rock that we think is just in the rings now. You can get that out of the way and roll in onto the corner. That's definitely going to open up your opportunities to at least score.
She always keeps coming back to that come around. She likes the idea of just looping one around and trying to put the pressure on. They go back to this time just playing the hit on the one that is just nibbling the top of the 12 foot. She can get rid of that one. It opens up shot stone with room to perhaps roll underneath as well. Force Clancy Grandy into a different call. Carly Burgess looking for the hit. The brushers were on this right away. Quiet wait here, and it's not going to get by the long guard.
Fortunately, just pushes it far enough that it's still out of the way of what'll likely be an in-turn draw for Mackenzie at the end of this end. Now Clancy's looking at, I was wondering when she was going to make this move, because obviously you don't want to guard forever. You'd like to cut down the rings a little bit more than they currently are for Mackenzie's last shot.
Well, and I think you have to believe that if you throw one more guard now, Mackenzie Zacharias is going to come around and try to score too.
Absolutely. So even though you try and make a play right now, she's going to have some kind of a run back or double to open things up for herself. If you put this rock in a good spot, it ends up staying there, somewhere like just biting side of the button, maybe. Give you the opportunity to throw another good stone with your last one and really put some pressure on the Jones team.
Clancy Grandy in the hacks. Managed to steal a 1 in the 6th there, pardon me, in the 5th end to tie things up as we play here in the 6th. Has a couple in the rings already, looking to draw sit 3 at the very least. Looking to get a force here and get the hammer back for that 7th end, but steal is still a possibility. Needs to make a good draw here if she wants that chance to steal.
Just for line. Wait close.
Not room yet by that stone at the top 12. She's trying to come around it. Nice line coming in. It's a question of whether or not this is going to stop in time. It does come to rest in full top 4 foot. That's a great draw by Clancy Grandy, and pressure now on Mackenzie Zacharias. You've got a couple of choices for doubles, but you'll still be facing one. Could play the slash double in the rings. You probably lose your shooter. She makes that draw again, facing 2 on your last one. There might be a run back triple you could play over the top, but you're losing your shooter on that one as well. Looking at drawing right to the face of that.
It's difficult to see. You could theoretically make a triple on those blues, but that by making the run back over the top, and all likelihood you're losing your shooter. And
oh, there you are, yeah.
Looks like Mackenzie wants to try and do something here for a multiple score. So gonna try and freeze, and maybe you have the opportunity to play a bump on your last one.
Well, that only works if Clancy Grandy doesn't throw, because if you're not shot rock after this one, she's throwing a guard.
Even if you don't get the angle right, Clancy could have a run back. You bump and roll off, she could just have a straight hit to sit 4. Definitely not easy goings, but no shortage of courage here to play this shot.
Pressures are off and on, so they like the weight. It's just a matter of the line now. This is still a long ways out. This has got more line than Clancy Grandy had on her draw for sure. Looks like maybe just a little bit more weight as well. You don't want to bump and roll out into the open. Oh, she makes a nice draw, sits that right on the corner.
But again, Clancy could just throw up a guard, and you don't really have a way to score 2, I don't see, if you're Mackenzie. You'd want the guard to be on the right side of the center line. The only path to make any play on that red stone would be, of course, to come through from the side she just did. So even if you threw it like side of the button line up as a guard, that would probably get the job done.
Can Mackenzie see enough of the blue in the 8 foot to make the double and hold her shooter? That's what they're looking at right now. How much can we see?
Thinking about that, that would be very difficult because your shooter is always going to be rolling to the outside. I don't think that's there, but it's difficult to tell with the camera angles, so they would obviously know a lot better than we do.
Yeah, you got to defer to the players on the ice. They can see those angles. It looks like they're worried about it a little bit. They did talk about you could come down and just nudge the stone on the 12 foot. You could take away both shots, the direct path to the red, and take away a little bit more of that blue one. Tough shot, but it would take away both. You could follow it right down. If you sit on the nose, there's not going to be any chance for 2. And you did just play that shot, so that might be what they opt for.
You do have to make sure that you don't over curl this a little bit. If you Mackenzie can end up seeing a piece of that red on the center line. With how much curl we've been seeing, it's likely she would be able to make some kind of a tap or have a chance at 2. So make sure that your rock is sort of wide open here. Even if you leave her an easy shot for 1, I think you'd be happy with the force.
So Clancy Grandy, outstanding come around on her first attempt, looking to come down one more time, sit on the top of the red, take away any chance for a multiple count here. We're going to be tighter to that rock in the 12-foot now. Might it be on the plan B now, try to take away both shots. Moves that stone over a little bit.
Now Mackenzie could still always play that bit of a pick on the left side as we look in the overhead. Looks like if you just run it into the blue, you would be shot, but I'm not. They did move that guard just slightly, so I wasn't entirely sure if the shot was there for 2 before, but I'm almost certain it's not now.
Is there any risk if you play this? Could you ever hit that blue thin enough to touch the red at the top of the 4-foot?
Not if they're smart about their weight call. I think the only, like, you'd have to hit that super thin, so as long as you're not throwing a missile at it, you're probably still okay. I think you could probably just throw a normal or control weight hit here, and you'd have to almost whisker it on the way by to hit it that thin.
Even if you just jam the one blue onto the other, and leave it right there, that would leave the red stone at the top of the 4-foot as shot rock. So a chance to get your single here. I don't think she can get 2 out of this. Watch her prove me wrong, though. Kenzie Zacharias, final stone here, the 6th end. Facing 1, looking for the little angle, short angle run. Boy, they're gonna have to go get this by the guard. And that little bit of a tap on the last stone puts that rock in the way. She rubs it on the way by. It'll be a steal of 1 for the 2nd end in a row for Clancy Grandy. She now takes a 4-3 advantage over Team Jones. As they go into the 7th end, it'll be Jones with the last rock.
For victims of domestic abuse, fleeing may mean leaving everything behind. There is hope. SaskTel provides brand new cell phones so that starting over is possible. Learn more at sastel.com/fresh start.
Imagine being able to stream every curling game from every sheet from any event, be it your Wednesday league game, bonspiel, or corporate event. Curling Stadium offers an all-inclusive streaming solution featuring high-quality cameras, ease of use, great reliability, and minimal installation. Offering your sponsors customizable ad space on your streamed curling games and being able to sell video packages to your corporate events for increased revenue. With Curling Stadium, you can stream to any device, be it your mobile phone, tablet, or computer. Push the feed to your desired platform, be it Facebook, YouTube, or any other social media. Curling Stadium is simply the way forward. Where it's commonplace in other sports to televise every game, we want to do the same. Curling is a global sport, and it's time it gets the coverage it needs. Make your curling club the next Curling Stadium.
Tight center guard being called for here to start the 7th end. Clancy Grandy, back-to-back steals in 5 and 6, has now taken the lead over Team Jones as we begin play in the 7th. Rematch of the final preliminary round game for both of these teams in the late draw last night. In that game, it was Jennifer Jones needing a victory just to make these playoffs. pulling off the win, but they're going to have a tough time ahead of them now. 2 ends left to play. They do have last rock here in the 7th. The tight center guard thrown up, and they're looking to come around right now. Not able to get by, just rubs off that stone, leaves 2 guards, both just off the center line a bit, and Clancy Grandy for another center. Well, what's the mindset here for both teams, Matthew? If you've got the Jones team, skipped by Zacharias here this morning, are you thinking blank first, or are you trying to get your deuce? You know, this is that traditional question. Would you rather be that one up or the one down?
Absolutely.
How do you want to play this?
And I think in general, the stats say that one up without is a little bit better. But it really comes down to team preference, I think. It can really vary from team to team, and there's a lot of teams out there that might be a little bit better down one with. You just have to be very careful, because if you try going for your 2 now and you ever get forced, you're not in a very good situation. You never want to have to steal that last end. So with these guards up, there's definitely going to be the opportunity to put some rocks in play, but would not be surprised at all. I think if you're Team Jones, if you get the opportunity for a blank, I think you take it rather than risking giving up or getting forced. If you're Team Grandy, you can sort of play it either way. I think they might be a little bit more willing to play, even if they allow some rocks to get in play. You really only need to make 1 or 2 good shots to preferably get a force. And I was just a bit surprised with the decision there at the end of that last end by Mackenzie. Like we've said before, we don't have our player mics up here in the booth, so we can't hear what the discussion was, but you didn't really need to play with that guard and play or play with that guard at all that she wrecked on to give up the steal last end. You hit about a third of a rock on that outside, you at least get your 1 point. And that's a big swing, giving up a steal. In this situation here, being down, or where she was going into that last end, if you want to talk about numbers a little bit extra, she had about a 2 and 3 chance of winning the game, being tied with in the 6th end. And if you get your 1, you're at about the same probability, so you have about a 2/3 chance of winning. By giving up that steal, she loses about 30% of her chances of winning that game. So yes, maybe if you thought the 2 was there, that would be good, but I just wasn't sure it was worth the risk of trying to play too close to that guard. And it's possible she was maybe just a little tight, maybe they weren't trying for it was just a miss, but just a little bit surprised they didn't play that a little bit safer and keep control of this game.
Well, the come around attempt there rubs off. Now 5 rocks have come to rest. They can make a play on this stone outside the rings. Going to try to roll in off of it. Still, the center line area is getting fairly congested. Clancy Grandy, you talked about how she feels in this situation. She probably isn't even overly panicked if she gives up 2. You would have the last rock coming home, and yes, you're right, the stats I think still show 1 up without is slightly higher, but it's getting pretty close to a coin flip. It's getting closer and closer to 50-50 all the time.
Absolutely, and that's why I said I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Clancy be a little bit more willing to
she'd love to see a single.
It.
She'd love to see a single go on the board on either side right now.
Absolutely, yeah, and even if, like you
she
said,
doesn't want a blank.
Even if she does give up the 2, she's still in a good position. So it looked like for a second I thought my prophecy was going to come true. She was tapping as if they were thinking of playing the straight come around, but it's like they've decided to still just play the hit and roll. I think I like this call. You have a lot of space to roll to. There's a lot of big portion of the house that's covered by those guards.
Need to curl a little bit at the end to get the roll. Makes the hit. Shooter's going to stay pretty much right there.
Even if that rolled another rock and at least choked off that way of getting in, that would have been nice, but gives Mackenzie the opportunity now to follow them down and make the hit and roll herself. Looking over at the men's game, it was a score of 4 for Riku Yanagasawa in the 6th end, so he takes a 5-3 lead over Steve Laycock in the 7th end of play. Women's game is still tied 4-4 in the 7th. Nancy Martin has the hammer over Chelsea Carey. As you said, you didn't seem all that surprised when I said there were lots of rocks in play over on that other men's game. So
no, I was more surprised that it was only 1-1 before that. You know, it's one of the things with looking at that game, just one more comment on it. Yanagasawa, when I was looking at the pregame list yesterday to do the game last night, quirk of the draw, you certainly can't say they had a soft schedule to get in. In their 5 preliminary round games, they ended up playing all 4 of the other teams that made the playoffs. So they've had to be on their game the entire event.
And they certainly have been. I was actually commentating one of their games against Mike McEwen, and they found themselves down early. I believe they were down 2 with just a few ends to go, and were able to get a single and rattle off a couple steals against Mike to actually win that game. So they're a very formidable team, and I would not be surprised at all if they ended up getting a couple more wins in the playoffs here.
Well, here we get a roll behind cover now, and the chance for the blank starting to look a little unlikely.
Yeah, with all those guards up, I think that's almost out of the question. Regardless of how many you can peel off, there's always going to be somewhere for Clancy to sink a stone. So switching gears now, if your team Zacharias, I think you kind of just have to go for your 2. 1 is not the position you want to be in. So going to try and sink this stone to a good spot. I think ideally you'd love to bite the top of the button buried.
Over buried if you could, but this has been the side that's been running a little straighter this game.
And this one is running a bit straight. Maybe a little bit heavy.
Not going to stop quite as early as they'd like it to either. Comes to rest. Back 8 foot.
And at this point, I think it's just a race to the button. First one that can get a rock in a good spot, biting the top of the button, is going to find themselves in a very good situation.
Kayla McMillan with the nice hit and roll on her first attempt now with her 2nd stone here in the 7th end, looking to come around. Maybe catch a corner of the button.
I thought Max wait. Close for line.
Rusher should pick this one up early. The same issue. She's going to need some curl here to bury. Still has lots of room.
Make it good. Keep it moving. Hard finish. Hard
Russia's really had to go on this to get it in. They're going to be able to bring that far enough to get shot rock?
I think they did.
I think they did, and it is mostly behind cover.
And that's one of the good things. Really, both of those rocks were on the same margin of error, but in different directions. Mackenzie's stone just a little bit heavy, and Clancy's stone just a little bit lighter, but you can see that coming up that little bit light puts yourself in a great situation. It still cuts off everything. They were able to just get it far enough to sit shot, and even if Mackenzie ends up making a run back here, you're always just going to have the same shot, and they'll probably just continue to sink them around. And if they can do that for 3 more rocks, or you're probably going to see a force here. Barring anything amazing coming from the Team Jones side.
Carly Burgess looking for the run back here with her final stone. Gotta be careful this over curls. She could double jam onto the red at the back. Kinda like that, but she is did at least get the blue out in the open. It still leaves Brandy sitting 3 right now.
And you had to get rid of those rocks. Even if you made that run back, got rid of your red at the back 8, you knew you weren't going to really bring that one into play. The real unfortunate part was leaving that blue stone in the top of the 8 foot. If you roll that to the side of the sheet, then you have some room to work with. But leaving it there gives Clancy the opportunity, if she can get to nose or maybe even slightly to the inside, bump it back 2 feet and leave it in sort of that Christmas tree formation we sometimes talk about, it's going to be very difficult for Mackenzie to get one in there to score.
You know, the thing that I'm looking at, I'm surprised they didn't talk about it. Yeah, that rock's only full 8 foot. You'd like to move it up, but there is no way to get to the 4 foot right now. You could just elect to guard this. Yeah, it's only just full 8 foot, but where does she go to beat it right now? I'd hate to leave her a way in off this shot, or perhaps a double to get out of some trouble. Back-to-back steals in 5 and 6. She's sitting 3 already here as she throws her first in 7. Looking to tap up into that button area and perhaps set up a steal for the third end in a row. Got nice line coming in now. Actually, good corner freeze roll, and that's a pretty good result too. Does the same thing. Yes, shot rock is only just full 8 foot, but how do you beat it right now?
Yeah, there's really no easy way. You could probably, to be honest, you could probably draw either side of the sheet and get enough of the 4 foot to be shot. The problem with that is with how much curl there is, you have to go out so far wide to get there. I don't know off the top of my head if I can recall anybody trying to draw that wide out in the sheet, so it would be a complete guess.
Mackenzie looking at what the options she might have with running back that red center guard. A couple of things in mind there. She'd like to open up a path somehow or another, and she can run it onto something. Might be able to get second shot at least out of it. I don't think she can make the run double. She'd have to get over the top of the reds. So
definitely not straight back. I think you could probably hit it maybe on a bit of an angle. As we look at the overhead, run it into that blue that's on the right side in the 12 foot, and maybe it could spin low into the other set of blues, and that would open things up for you.
Maybe get a double on the 2 blues that are in the 12 foot that way. That's not
yeah.
And the critical part of that also is it would get the shooter off that center line and maybe leave you a shot for the last one.
Yeah, I mean, there's really, I don't think she's trying to find any way to score 2 here. Her big question is, how does she put herself in the best situation to have a shot to score? Almost a situation where I think when the 5 rock rule came into play the first time, you almost saw teams sometimes give up a steal of 1 in this situation rather than take 1. They would rather be down 2 with the hammer, because with the 5 rock rule, a 3 was more prevalent maybe a few years ago. I'm not entirely sure what the numbers say nowadays as to that, but
well, she's facing 4 right now. She might be okay with a steal of 1. Again, when they come down and talk about it like that, they know what the plan is, but of course they're not signaling here, so I'm not sure. With that ice, I have to think she's running it on the angle. But so. Everything she looked at kind of looked like she was trying to run it straight back. Straight back's not bad. You run it onto the blue, the shooter will come across, catch the other blue at the top 12 foot, and the jam will leave the blue stone in the 8 foot, but probably fully exposed. You'd have a second shot buried. On the brush here. Looks like they are running it on the angle. Catches 1, comes across, back into the other blue stone, and enough to spin it into the top of the 4 foot. Sits shot rock.
And you know what's amazing about that is there's really no run back on the blues to get rid of that redstone. There might be a port that they're looking at now that you can come in and remove it, but either way, I think an excellent shot there by Mackenzie Zacharias to not only make the run back, but hit it so perfectly that it squirts in there to sit shot stone.
problem that you might have here now, if you're Mackenzie Zacharias, if Clancy Grandy can make that port and hit it right on the nose, don't roll anywhere, I don't know how you don't give up a steal.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't see a way to score. The only way to get out of it might be to play that wide in-turn draw. But as I said before, that would be a complete guess. I haven't seen anyone this weekend go out that far.
Now, this broom placement surprises me because I think you have to curl to make that port. She's putting the broom down as if she thinks she's just going to fire it through there. To me, it doesn't look like between the blue guard and the blue at the top of the 12-foot, there's room to get a rock going straight. I think you need to curl through the port.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, I was thinking the harder you throw this rock, the tighter you're making the port. I think the less weight you throw, the more room you have to work with, especially bringing your sweepers into play. But she seems to think there's enough room, so...
It has been a straighter side here this morning, so she might still be thinking, even with that broom, that she's not going to overthrow this, but you could make this with hack weight. You'd still probably need a few more inches of ice, I would think.
She's definitely not kicking out with big peel.
Pressures are close. Now looking for a little bit curl. She's by the long guard. She just clips off her own stone at the top of the 12-foot, and that is an absolute disaster. She's given up a chance for two.
Yeah, I don't think that was that port was there the way she thought it was. I mean, she was pretty close to that guard as I look at the replay a little bit. Maybe only like a half inch that she got by that guard, the first guard. So I don't know, maybe if she papers it that she makes it through, but just that weight choice, you're taking away so much room for yourself.
The weight choice really surprised me. I thought she'd throw something like a hack and rely on it curling at the end.
And the other thing is, if you throw hack, you're not, even if you do miss slightly on that wide side, you may not be taking out your own blue stone by throwing that extra weight. She's now removed stone, just left an easy nose hit for Mackenzie, where even if you don't make it perfect with hack and you rearrange something, you might still be in a situation where Mackenzie has to play maybe a precise draw or something a little bit easier than just this wide open hit. I don't know. I don't really understand what the thinking was there, and maybe if we could hear them talking, we'd have a bit more of an idea, but just a lot that could go wrong there.
Well, certainly for most of the week, that would have curled enough at the end to get through that port. Today, a little bit straighter, rubs her own stone, and it is Mackenzie Zacharias making the hit, rolls to the outside, but stays in time to get her second point. So she'll take a 5-4 advantage into the eighth end of play. It'll be Clancy Grandy with last rock coming home.
Imagine a place with endless possibilities. Imagine a place where people come together to build families, businesses, and communities. Imagine a place where small-town values and progressive qualities are in perfect harmony. Imagine a place rich with so much vitality. Imagine your future in Martensville.
Saskatchewan, you know SaskTel, because we're everywhere. Because being everywhere keeps us connected to you. You are what matters most. With SaskTel sponsorships, we get to be a part of your community. From the dance competitions, to the rodeos, to helping discover and embrace technology across the province, we're here with you, and we're here for you. It's easy to get started. All you need to do is apply. Every year, SaskTel contributes nearly $3 million to approximately 1,000 nonprofits, charities, associations, and events in more than 200 communities across Saskatchewan. So keep dancing, keep laughing, keep discovering, and we'll be there to help, to lend a hand, and join in the fun. SaskTel cares. Always has, always will, because we are dedicated to our home. To apply for sponsorship, visit sastel.com/sponsorships.
A big 2 points picked up by Team Jones in the seventh end makes up for that steal in sixth. They now have the lead coming home and asking for the tight center guard here on the first stone. And is that going to slip into the rings? It does. Clancy Grandy needing a deuce here for the win. Still going to ignore that stone, call it for her corner guard. Really, she didn't even think about it. It's one of those situations where with that rock being half in the 12-foot, could have played to hit it, try to keep your shooter in the free guard zone, but if you ever rolled into the rings, you'd have the opportunity right back.
Yeah, I think it would pretty much be game over, more or less, if you ended up doing that. Now, we did talk about last end that we didn't think Clancy would be dead in the water if she did give up a 2, and usually it's about a 60-40 split in favor of the team being up 1 without, but we'll see how this ends up playing out. Definitely maybe not the first rock that Team Jones was looking for, so it'll be interesting to see how this ends up working.
One thing that I will say about those stats, and of course when they compile those stats, they compile it in every game, regardless of the situation, regardless of the surface that you're playing on. And on this particular surface, yeah, we haven't seen a lot of deuces in this game. We have seen 2, both by the Jones team, but there's plenty of come-around ability on this ice, and there should be opportunities to score your 2.
Absolutely, and that's why I do think you always have to take those numbers with a bit of a grain of salt, or at least take them within the context of what you're seeing on the ice. And I do agree. I think the opportunity for multiple points are there.
On a straighter surface, you might be a little bit more worried about it, but plenty of curling. We have talked about it. Yes, it's a little straighter today, but it's not like they're not curling. They're still taking 4 feet of ice to make the draw. It's just not making the big late movement that we've seen. You have to come by a little tighter by the guards, but we've seen some nice come-arounds made, and the ice will certainly still give them to you. The one thing that might be a little bit more difficult is trying to come around with the hack weights, the bumper weights, and get that finish you need to maybe make the hit on something that's partially buried. And that actually plays into your favor if you're trying to score 2 here around guards.
Opportunity here almost immediately if they can make this shot really well, remove that redstone that's in the rings. You're rolling pretty close to that corner guard. This looks like it's going to be very close.
Playing with nice quiet weight. He wasn't really concerned about killing the red. Didn't like the overlap on those 2 red stones.
Absolutely. You don't have to get rid of it, but you've now moved it into really, I think, the best position it could be on the sheet. It is wide open, so you always have the chance to hit it if that's available later. But more importantly, where it's positioned, Mackenzie has to be really careful about going around that center guard. If she puts it in a place where normally you'd think would be great, biting top of the button, that would just leave a very simple half rock double for Team Grandy.
Early on here in this 8th end with a 1-point lead, Team Jones almost put into a situation here where they have to play this like they need to steal now, because that fighter that's buried at the corner could end up being the second point.
Absolutely, and I don't really think they're going to get a chance to access that stone without a complete miss or a hit and roll out or something by Team Grandy. So, but as I said, put that rock in what would 99% of the time be a great position, but with this specific scenario ends up leaving just an easy half rock double here for Lindsay Dubé.
Doesn't absolutely have to get the second one out, but she wants to punch it out from behind the guard and preferably leave it in the open. Doesn't want to punch it behind her own corner. And throwing the weight to get them both out. The hit comes across, does catch the second stone, and will get it all the way out the back. For a bonus, her shooter actually spins up a little bit, and it is dead buried.
Yeah, stays dead buried right behind that center rock. I think that's key for them. Doesn't really leave a whole lot of options for Mackenzie Zacharias, and now you'll see really the only option she has is to try and lock down a freeze onto this stone. Even then you're leaving Clancy sitting shot. So talked about the opportunities to score 2. I think this is exactly how you want to see things shaping up, finishing up your second stones.
picking this one up just outside the hog line. Gonna have to go to get by her own. And it is just going to rub.
Getting a little caught there again. They just didn't seem all that worried early on. Sort of just cleaned it until about 5-6 feet before the hog line. And that happened on their last shot too, so I'm a bit surprised that they got caught there. They were able to just squeak by their guard on the last one, but big opportunity for Team Grandy now to hit and set 3.
We're looking for a slight roll to the outside, even nose hits okay. Don't want to roll back to the middle at all.
Nose probably leaves a double here for Team Jones, but if they make the double perfectly, you're likely sitting out in the opening. Clancy would just hit and roll to the open side again. So instead, trying to be a bit more precise with this. Instead of making the double, just hitting and rolling on top to that sort of frozen position they were trying to get to on their last stone.
Yeah, you could just look at drawing there too. The difference between 2 and 3, well, there is no difference. You still lose.
Yeah.
So you don't really need to worry about eliminating blue stones. The key here is to get this stone into a good position, and probably the easiest way to do it is to draw it there.
I think with the way the rocks are setting up right now, it's very difficult to not see Clancy having something for the win. And like you said, you give up 3 or you give up 6, you still lose. So if you can come up with one really good freeze or really good draw somewhere to make it very tough on Clancy, that might be your best way out of this situation.
More room coming by the front one on this attempt. Marshall will bring that down, and she sits right on the corner of that blue stone. That's a good shot. Nancy Grandy looking at the run back. Now looking at the tap. I would have already peeled that center guard.
Yeah, I think so. If you peel it, what is Mackenzie going to do? If she just hits the open stone, you get rid of some reds, and you're always probably going to have a chance to score. Even if you end up running it back and you lose everything on the center line, you're still sitting 2. You have your own color there, so if Mackenzie ever decides to try and draw around, you're running your own color in. Peel works as well. Yep.
Yeah, it looks like she's opting for the run back. The only real danger I see in the run back is if you ever run it by the red, clip out the blue, leave your shooter as a center guard, you flip the script and now you're in trouble. Peel the guard, Mackenzie Zacharias has to put it back. That's all. That's the only shot she's got. And that's what they're going to get. Get the peel, get your shooter out of there. Mackenzie Zacharias has no choice. She's got to put the guard back. She's protecting that rock for her life right now, and even if she can protect it for the rest of the end, you've still got ways into the forefoot to get your deuce. So she may have to make a decision at some point in the end. How do we stop them from scoring 2? But right now she's got a guard.
Absolutely. I think you have to do this at least for 1 rock. Sorry, is this Carly's first stone or second? Lost track. I think it's second. So Weiss's second rock, you have to guard at least for 1 more. Then you can kind of decide what you're going to do. There is the ability to hit that red stone and possibly split the rocks to both sides of the house. But if you ever don't make that perfect, you leave a double.
You could make a case here for guarding this right through and forcing Grandy to hit the forefoot with her final stone, because the corner guard on the outturn side kind of takes away that path.
And the rock sort of top 12, top 8 foot on the other side is sort of in the way for the draw.
It's not as clear a path to the forefoot as you'd like, but it's definitely there. And here's the thing: if you try to play anything into the house, if you're Mackenzie Zacharias, you could end up leaving her an easier shot for the win. So maybe you're content to just guard this right through and hope she misses the forefoot and you get into an extra game.
Either way, not usually a situation you want to be in where you're just guarding something and you're just hoping for a miss on the last rock on a draw. You're right, it might be the best course of action right now.
If you don't want to guard right through, the other thing you could do right now is play another freeze. If you could freeze it again on that same angle, freeze your own red stone so that the middle red's not going anywhere. I think.
Is that what they ended up calling here?
No, I think they're playing the straight guard again.
Okay. You're right, though. You could freeze in such a way that cuts off a little bit more of the draw and makes it a bit tricky.
Well, and by freezing again, you put it in a place where Clancy Grandy can't really play the hit. She'd lose her own shot stone, could leave you sitting as many as 2, and you might have a chance to guard. But, it's a fairly precise shot, too. You overcurl that, she blasts everything out of the middle. She's already sitting 2. Regardless, they've opted for the guard.
And I just checked in on the other women's game. We do have a final. Chelsea Carey stealing the final end, 1 point for a 7-4 victory over Nancy Martin. So they will move on to play Silvana Tiranzoni in the semifinal.
Clancy Grandy looking at whether or not she wants to make a play on the 2 reds. Still risky. You run this back, kill all 3. Your shooter's going to stay as a guard, and they're going to come around it. Could very well just play that same peel again. I think they're even talking about trying to just come around with a draw with tap and break up the red-blue combination. That's really risky. Used to be a saying that we used to pass around. There's a few people I've heard use it. I've used it myself. Easy me, hard you. Play the easy shot yourself. Leave the hard one for Mackenzie Zacharias.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to push the envelope here. You already have your points set up.
Exactly. It's Mackenzie Zacharias is in the situation where she's going to have to push the envelope a little bit. You try to play anything on that red-blue combination in the middle, and you might be facing a steal with your last one. Right now, you think you've got your tie in the back pocket, at least. What she's probably worried about is that Mackenzie Zacharias tries to make some kind of a tap and doesn't leave her a double on the last one. But tough to do that.
I think you need to do something with that rock that she just threw at the top of the 12.
I don't see any reason not to.
If you feel confident and you want to take on the straight run back and lose everything, then that's fine. Of course, there is the risk you run it by, pick out your own. But if you feel confident, I think that's a fine call. Otherwise, peel or just hit and roll into the far side kind of thing.
I don't love losing everything either, because then she's just going to come around. Your shooter's going to be right there. She's going to come around it.
And at least in that scenario, you're running back your own color, and you don't have to stick it. You just have to remove them.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to play a run back with your last one in this the way things are going right now, though. Pick that one out again, peel it, same as you did for the last 2 attempts. Not in love with this call. This is the only way you give Mackenzie Zacharias a chance to set up the steal.
I agree.
This is the absolute only way.
What was the final decision here? Are they trying to freeze, or are they trying to go around it?
They're trying to come into it for sure. Whether they're trying to freeze or maybe bounce it just a little bit and break up the blue-red or the red-blue angle. Hoping, I guess, that if they can change the angle a little bit, Mackenzie tries to tap, that she'll bounce the red stone out where you can get rid of it. Clancy Grandy with her first stone here at the 8th end. She has made some really nice draws in this game. Looking to come down.
Top 4!
The face of that red stone, change the angle a little bit. just queued it up as far as it appears to me. Mackenzie Zacharias taking a look at the angles. I think you want to hit that just a hair on the, well, she's looking at, can she get underneath? Possibly. You don't want to hit it right on the nose. Hit it right on the nose, the two blues will fly, but you leave a fairly easy red double. You could hit it a hair on the outside and roll to the outside. Avoid leaving the double that way, but you might leave the blue stone in the rings. I think what they're looking at is try to get the hit, roll underneath their own, leave the 3 red stones in the line. 2 blues are both going to leave. They're definitely playing the hit here. The question is all about which way do we try to roll. And all the discussion looks like is to roll underneath their own. So now, just where do you put the broom to make that?
Not a situation that we thought we were going to see Mackenzie Zacharias being in a few rocks ago, but yeah, if you can ever flop this just a little bit behind the red guard, it makes it a very difficult shot for Clancy Grandy to score too.
She may end up having to play basically a triple on, and I hate to keep harping on it, but she'll have to hit the rock that she probably should have hit on her last one. This still has to be made. She hits this right on the nose, she's going to leave a fairly easy double for the win. Got to get to the inside here, needs to get the roll just so she doesn't leave the easy double right back. And this has got a curl. Sweeping from the offside, trying to get a little bit of finish. She's going to hit. She'll make the double on the blues, but her shooter stays right there. And she's going to leave the opportunity for the double right back. She's going to have to hit this fairly close to the nose, so she'll probably keep the shooter anyway, but she's got 3rd and 4th right now anyway. Even if she had to make the double and roll out, that would be enough points to give her the win.
So after all that, the game is in the hands of Clancy Grandy. Sitting in the hack now, just a 2-foot double is all it's going to take to come away with the victory and move on to the semifinal against Team Unchi Gim.
Clancy Grandy, final stone here, the 8th end, needs the double. We're on the sweep right away. She can't throw all the way up to the nose, and she missed the 2nd stone. Makes the hit, clips the 2nd one thin, but with that big weight, it's enough to get it all the way out the side. She actually picks up 3 points here. That's 2 was enough for the victory. She goes into the books as a 7-5 win for Clancy Grandy over Team Jennifer Jones. Grandy will move on to play in the semifinal this afternoon. Outstanding game here, back and forth the whole game. It was a treat to watch. Matthew, as we go into that semifinal, what do you think of this Grandy team? Where are they sitting right now mentally? That had to be the emotions have to be really high after that last end.
Well, especially after last night. Watching them play, it was like a completely different team last night. Nothing could go their way, and you know what? They came out, and Jennifer Jones's team, Mackenzie Zacharias' team pretty much owned the first 4 ends of this game, but that steal of 1 in the 5th end, I think, was the turning point. It gave so much confidence to the Grandy team, and yeah, they had a little bit of slip up in 7, but never really looked back past that, and I think it's an entirely different team that I saw this morning than last night, so they're going to take that confidence, and I think I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a deep run here in the playoffs today.
Well, they've got a quick turnaround now. About an hour, be back on the ice for the semifinal. Strong game here, a nice finish for the Grandy team, probably on an emotional high as they get ready for that semifinal. We will have all of the action for you here on Curling Stadium. Semifinal and finals of both the men's and the women's action yet to go today. My name is Sean Joyce. Matthew Hall has been my...
Imagine being able to stream every curling game from every sheet from any event, be it your Wednesday league game, bonspiel, or corporate event. Curling Stadium offers an all-inclusive streaming solution featuring high-quality cameras, ease of use, great reliability, and minimal installation. Offering your sponsors customizable ad space on your streamed curling games and being able to sell video packages to your corporate events for increased revenue. With Curling Stadium, you can stream to any device, be it your mobile phone, tablet, or computer. Push the feed to your desired platform, be it Facebook, YouTube, or any other social media. Curling Stadium is simply the way forward. Where it's commonplace in other sports to televise every game, we want to do the same. Curling is a global sport, and it's time it gets the coverage it needs. Make your curling club the next Curling Stadium.